Let me start off with a question. Find out who we're talking to here this morning. If somebody comes to you and says, I've got good news and I got bad news, how many of y'all want the good news first? Okay, just raise your hand. How many people, if you're online, jump in the chat and say good news? Okay, all right, that's kind of what I figured. How many of y'all want the bad news first? Okay, it's a Band-Aid, rip it right off, right? That's kind of where we are. Good news, bad news. So one of my favorite good news, bad news stories, you guys have probably heard this, but humor me. Two baseball-loving friends, and they just love the game, and they spend like all of their lives just talking about, do you think there's going to be baseball in heaven? Do you think there's going to be baseball? I don't know. And so it gets down to it. They make an agreement. They make a pact with one another. It's like, well, whoever dies first has to agree to come back and tell the other one whether or not there's baseball in heaven. And so time goes along, and one of the guys finally dies, and so he holds up his end of the bargain, and he comes back and he visits his friend, and he says, I got good news and I got bad news. And he's like, well, what's the good news? And he's like, well, there is baseball in heaven. He's like, oh my goodness, this is everything we hoped for, everything we've dreamed about our entire lives. Well, that is incredible news. What could possibly be the bad news? He's like, well, you're pitching tomorrow, okay? There you go. All right, love it. Good news, bad news right there. Thank you for humoring me. All right. So the story of Joseph, which we're starting that story for the next month today, really is a good news, bad news kind of story. There's a lot of good news. There's a lot of bad news. It just kind of is woven into this story. Like, for instance, Joseph is one of the youngest sons of Jacob, and he is his daddy's favorite son. I mean, it is clear. It is obvious. And so that really is, for Joseph, that's good news, right? Never has to wonder if his daddy loves him. That's good news. Now, his brothers know that Joseph is the favorite, and so they hate him for it. Bad news, right? That's the bad news part of the story. Daddy loves him so much, he gives him a special robe. We could call it a Technicolor dream coat if you want, And so he's never going to have to worry about, having to go out there and work, because this isn't like a work jacket. This is like a dress jacket kind of thing. And so he's not going to have to work. That's good news. Bad news is, well, his brothers rip it off, cover it with blood, pretend he's dead, and sell him into slavery. All right? That's bad news if you're not paying attention. He gets a job while he's in slavery, working in Egypt for a boss named Potiphar. And he's a wealthy boss. He ends up being promoted. He is a handsome guy, okay? Handsome guy. He's like a young, tall Tom Cruise, okay? Just a really good-looking guy. That's good news, all right? That's good news. His boss's wife thinks he's good-looking, tries to seduce him. Bad news, right? Joseph resists the seducing. That's good news. She falsely accuses him of rape. Bad news, okay? He gets thrown into prison. And while he's in prison, he's a model prisoner to the place to where the warden gives him the keys to the jail. And while he's there, he meets Pharaoh's butler, interprets his dream, and makes a deal with the butler to tell Pharaoh all about Joseph whenever he gets out of prison, okay? That's good news. The butler forgets, and Joseph remains in prison. And by the time the butler remembers Joseph, it's been 13 years. It's been 13 years since Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, and that now he's been in jail. So that's bad news. It's a good news story. It's a bad news story, isn't it? I mean, he just can't win for losing, You just kind of feel sorry for the guy. And I think one of the reasons why this story resonates so deeply with us, though, as we learn to live as followers of Jesus, is because we know that just like Joseph, we've got a lot of stuff that we've got to overcome in life. That we face difficulty. We've got a lot of stuff we got to do. We've got to overcome sinful attitudes. We have to face temptation. We have to learn to forgive others. We have to deal with pain, difficulty, and adversity. Because every single one of us, we know we've all had problems. Some of us are having problems right now. And the rest of us, well, you're just getting ready for your problems because they're coming, right? And so it's just kind of the way that life goes. And have you ever noticed, though, that some people, whenever it comes to their difficulties that they face, that they're crushed by them? Just absolutely wiped out, absolutely destroyed by them? But yet then there's other people who are just like utterly transformed by the difficulties that they face. Isn't that interesting? Some people crushed, other people transformed. Joseph transformed through difficulty. transformed through everything that he faced because he was able to display resilience. He displayed grit and determination. He kept on going even though life was hard. So Joseph is a story that is well worth our time to spend some time just looking at it. Because in this continued season that we find ourselves in that seems like it's never going to end, wouldn't it be nice to learn how we can be resilient and to continue to face difficulty and to be transformed by it and not crushed by it? Well, it all begins with the presence of God. So if you've got a Bible, we're going to be looking at Joseph's story. It's found in the Old Testament book of Genesis. We're going to jump over to Genesis chapter 39 if you're flipping over there. If you need help finding Genesis, it's number 1, all right? So it's the very first book in your Bible. Now, Joseph's story kind of begins a little bit earlier. In chapter 37, Joseph's brothers are jealous of him, and they kind of make a decision amongst themselves. There's 10 of them that he's got to go, all right? He's got to die. They got to get rid of him because one day his daddy sends Joseph out to go check on the work that his brothers are doing out watching the flocks. Interesting note, why does Joseph have to be sent out to go check on the brothers? Don't miss it. Because he ain't got to go work, all right? They're the ones that's got to do the work in, and he just gets to stay at home, and he gets to, watch TV all day. And so dad says, why don't you go check on them? And so he goes out there, and they see Joseph walking at them, and they just start riling each other up. This happens sometimes. You get a group of people, they just start working each other up. And so they're like, you know what? Here he comes, the one that we know dad loves more than us. This is just not fair. It's not right. You know what we should do? We should just get rid of this guy. We should just wipe him off the face of the earth. And so they start to plot, and they've got this scheme. They're going to grab their brother. They're going to take him. They're going to beat him up. They're going to throw him into this pit so they can kill him later. And so that's what they do. They grab him, and they just beat the tar out of him, and they throw him into a pit. And then one of the coldest things you'll ever read in scriptures, it says after they threw him into the pit, they sat down and they ate lunch. They're like, they don't even care. It's like, yeah, is that our brother screaming over there? Mm-hmm, it is. Can you pass me the Doritos? All right, because I still need, I worked up an appetite beating our brother, and so just give me something to eat. Well, they're going to kill him. But one of the brothers feels sorry for him. And he's like, you know what, we shouldn't kill him, which that's really nice, that's like a nice thing, that's a good thing, it's like, hey, we probably shouldn't kill our brother, you think, but he's like, you know what we should do instead? And it's like, oh, this is not going to go well. We should just sell him into slavery. It's like, well, you could just let him go, and we could just kind of pretend this didn't happen. But so that's what they do. They sell him into slavery. And, the beginning of Joseph's story should just as you look at your family, you should go, my family's not that bad. It's not that bad. I never tried to sell my brother into slavery, so I'm doing okay. But so that's what it is. So Joseph gets sold into slavery, and that's where we'll pick up in Genesis chapter 39. We'll start off there in verse 1, and this is what it says. It says, when Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And the Lord, now I want you to say this next part with me. You guys ready? The Lord was with Joseph. All right, okay. That's interesting. Just been sold into slavery. Okay. So the Lord was with Joseph, and so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Now, Potiphar noticed this and realized, say it with me, he realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving Joseph success in everything he did. And this pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. And from the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. Sounds like a good life, doesn't it? I mean, that sounds like a good life, all right? And so that's what Potiphar's doing. Then look at the last sentence. It says this: Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man. The Lord was with Joseph. Isn't it interesting that even in the worst situation of Joseph's life, that the Lord is still with him? Now, a question you may have that I don't have the answer to, because I've got the question as well. And so does Joseph know that the Lord is with him here in that moment? Or is this something that he realizes years later looking backwards? Oh, look, the Lord's hand was with me the entire time. And the answer is, well, I don't know, okay? Ask me again in 1,000 years and I'll tell you, okay? After I've had a chance to meet him. And so it's just like, does he know that? I don't know. But here's the thing. At the very least, as he looks backwards on his life, he is able to go, oh, the Lord was with me. And so that leads me to just this point. And here's what I need you to hear, and here's what I need you to understand. Even when you cannot see him, even whenever you cannot see his hand at work in your life, he is there. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that he's left. Just because you feel as though he is absent does not mean that he is absent. Okay, he is present even if you don't feel like it. He is with you. It doesn't, just because you can't see him doesn't mean that he's gone. It doesn't mean that you have been abandoned. The Lord was with Joseph in prison, in slavery. He was with him the entire time. And I don't know what you walked in facing today, but maybe you're wondering, has the Lord left me? Has the Lord abandoned me? The answer is no. He's with you. He's with you as you struggle in your marriage. He's with you as you struggle in your finances. He's with you as you struggle with your addiction. He's with you as you struggle with that broken relationship. He hasn't left you. Like, well, I can't see him. No. That's not what we're talking about. The question is he with you? And the answer is yes. He's with you. And so what Joseph is able to do, and I kind of have an inkling that there's at least something about Joseph that he understands that he hasn't been abandoned. Because what he does is he continues to press on. He doesn't just like lie down. He doesn't just quit. He doesn't just go, you know what, I've had a pretty rough time, so I think it's just time for me to walk away from everything. Even though nobody would have blamed him for it, right? I mean, we say around here, everybody's got their own definition of hard, all right? So Joseph had a very strong definition of hard. It's just like he gets up, tells his story, everybody starts feeling bad about the fact that their, paycheck arrived, an hour or two late. It's like, wow, no, that's difficulty. But he kept on. He kept pressing on, and the story continues, So, he's a well-built, young, handsome man, and Potiphar's wife, she notices that he's a well-built, handsome young man, and so she starts to try to seduce him, and I think it's very safe to assume that Joseph was tempted. It does say that he was a handsome young man. It does not say that she was handsome, so maybe she looked like Jabba the Hutt. I don't know. But, and so maybe this wasn't that difficult for him. I don't know, but I think it's safe to say Joseph was tempted with this. And you think about this for just a second. Think about how easy it is for you to give in to temptation. And then put yourself in a foreign land where nobody knows you. Nobody knows your daddy. Nobody knows your brothers. Nobody knows the God that you've worshiped. Nobody knows anything about anybody. And there's no social media. Nobody's going to send a letter. Nobody's going to call. Nobody's going to take a picture and post it. Like, honestly, if anybody could have gotten away with this, do you know who it is? It's Joseph. But he keeps fighting it. And he says, no, this would violate my boss's trust in me. This would be a sin against God. And Potiphar's wife, she is persistent day after day after day. She tries to seduce him, and day after day he says no, until one day she tries to force the issue, and so he just runs away. She's like grabbed onto his outer garment, and he like runs away. She holds on to it, and she accuses him of trying to rape her. And this is what it says, jumping down there to verse 19. It says that Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. So he took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained. But here's our sentence again. You guys ready? Say this with me. But the Lord was with Joseph. He was with him in the prison, showed him his faithful love, And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden, and before long the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. Now say it with me. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. Now Potiphar's mad, but I want to point this out. I don't think Potiphar believed his wife. Not for a second. Why do I believe that? Well, because he's the captain of the prison guard who is in charge of executions. And if you're the captain of the prison guard who could have a guy executed at the drop of a hat and he tried to do something to your wife that, was forced upon her, what do you think you do? Some of you all aren't the captain of the prison guard and you know what you would do, okay? It's not throw them in jail. But Potiphar's is like, well, I guess I got to put him in jail. So he's mad. Why is he mad? Well, he just lost a really good employee, and it's just like, doggone, I just lost that guy. And so, but there's that phrase again. He puts him in prison, and what is going on? The Lord is with him. The Lord is with him. 2 times again. The Lord was with Joseph, caused him to succeed. Now, there's a lot of Joseph's story left to tell, and we still have 3 more weeks after today to tell the story. So let's hit the pause button today. And I want to zero in on these 2 little accounts in his life. And I think that there are 2 really important lessons for us to walk away with today as we consider the presence of God, what it meant for Joseph, and how he was able to press on in the midst of difficulty. So here's the first lesson. Here's how I wrote it down. Quitting is easier than enduring, but easy isn't always best. Quitting is easier than enduring, but what's easy isn't always best. Little secret of life is it doesn't always go the way you want it to go. And your best laid plans, your best intentions don't always end up playing out. And whenever life doesn't go the way that you planned it to go, do you know what feels very tempting? Just give up. Just walk away. It's like, man, being married is hard. Like, who didn't tell me this, It's like, where did this all come from? I mean, who would have thought you take 2 sinful people and you put them underneath the same house and they live together? It's like, I thought this would be a whole lot easier than what this is turning out to be. I mean, I know how great I am, so obviously, it's not my problem. If she weren't so difficult to live with, And so what do we do? It's like, well, that means I just want out. This is hard, way harder than I thought it would be. And even if I don't like outright divorce, how about this? How about we just have a mediocre marriage, all right? Let's just settle. If we can be perfectly average, everything will be good. At the very least, we'll just be roommates, and we'll share resources, okay? Or it's like, you know what? Seeking to live on a budget, and honor God with a tithe, man alive, who would have known that like trying to live on 90% is sometimes a little bit more tougher than living on 100%? I think I'll just go out. I mean, where's my Amazon card again? I think I can do that instead. That's a whole lot easier. Or it's like, you know what? This job isn't what I dreamed it would be. I was just hoping for something else. I'd planned on doing great things, playing on a bigger field, not having to be faithful in a situation like this. See, quitting is easier than enduring. But what's easy isn't always best for us. See, the trouble with bailing, with quitting, is that brings its own pain with it. Because here's the secret of life. All right, you guys ready? Growth happens when we endure that which we'd rather quit. You want to know the secret to growth, the personal growth, to being able to expand and be able to go beyond where you are right now? It happens whenever you endure that which you would rather just quit and give up on. There's a great book by a guy by the name of Samuel Chand. It's called Leadership Pain. And it's got some great lines in it, but here are a few that I just really, really love. This is what he says. He says, reluctance to face pain is your greatest limitation. Listen to him. There is no growth without change. No change without loss, and no loss without pain. And here's basically the thesis of the book. you'll grow only to the threshold of your pain. Because comfort is overrated. Comfort doesn't lead to happiness. It makes us lazy, forgetful, leads to self-absorption, boredom, and discontent. Discomfort, though, can be a catalyst for growth. And it makes us yearn for something more. It forces us to change, to stretch, and adapt. You'll only grow to the threshold of your pain. You got to keep on. I mean, the best scientists, what do? They keep testing. What do the best academics do? They keep pressing on. What do the best leaders do? They fight through the pain. What do the best athletes do? They press through and they play through the pain. You guys probably remember the name Lou Gehrig, right? Lou Gehrig played back in the 20s for the New York Yankees. Played first base for them along with Babe Ruth. You know, he was on that team. And he played for 15 years. He was known as the Iron Man of baseball. Okay, up until Cal Ripken Jr. broke his record in, I think, like 95, 96 in that area. Lou Gehrig had the record for most consecutive games ever played in a row. It was 2,130 games in a row. Okay, 2,130 games in a row. We can't even get a pitcher to pitch more than 4 innings now, right? And he did 2,130 games in a row. You know, that's just what he did. There was no rest. Every time they played, he was in the lineup. It was remarkable. But whenever Lou Gehrig retired, they did x-rays of his hands, and what they found out was every finger had been broken once, some twice, and others 3 times. Never missed a game. Why? Because he played through the pain. He didn't give up. He endured. He went through. He pressed on. The greatest football team that you've never heard of. Okay, I know some of y'all, you're still on your high. It's like it's only been 28 days since Georgia won a national title, okay? And so you're thinking that's the name. No, that's not the name of the team. It actually comes from 1899. Okay, 1899, it was a team up in Swanee, Tennessee. It's now known as the University of the South. But in 1899, catch this, they played 5 games in 6 days. 5 games in 6 days, y'all, okay? They played Texas, Texas A&M, Tulane, LSU, and Mississippi. Okay, 5 games in 6 days, and they only had 14 players on the roster. Okay, some of you are like, well, what's the big deal about that? Okay, in football, all right, you only have 11 on the field at a time, all right? And so they have 14 guys on there. So they're playing Ironman football. They're playing both offense and defense. And after 5 games, they had scored 113 points while giving up 0. Broken, bruised, they played through the pain, didn't they? The most lopsided score in the history of football was in 1916 when, believe it or not, Georgia Tech played Cumberland College from Cumberland, Tennessee. The score was 222-0. And it was Georgia Tech that won, okay? So we're just getting it out there, okay? When reading about the game, they said that the Tech players were like animals, big, and the Cumberland players small. And one time the Cumberland quarterback fumbled the ball and it rolled toward a teammate, and he yelled over and said, "Pick it up!" And the other yelled back, "You pick it up, you dropped it," okay? And so, you gotta play through the pain. You're gonna be hurt. You gotta play through it. Growth happens whenever you decide to be wholly faithful in a situation that you don't like and you don't understand. It happens when you keep walking even though you've walked into a wall. And then you discover that somehow you're not alone. That just as the Lord was with Joseph, he is with you. Quitting is easy, but what's easy isn't always best. Here's lesson number 2 today. My confidence is not in my circumstances, but my confidence is in the God over my circumstances. My confidence is not in my circumstances. It's not in what I'm currently experiencing, but it's in the one who holds my circumstances. It's the one who is over my circumstances. You see, Joseph was stripped of his coat, but not his purpose. He had been stripped of it. They took it away. And even though he no longer had his coat, he no longer had his freedom, he was still able to push on and to fight. Why? Because the Lord was with him. And whenever you respond in your current circumstances, as if you're confident that God is there, you will see God in your circumstances. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. And maybe not immediately because our circumstances can just kind of form, they kind of act as like a blind spot for us sometimes, don't they? I've got a buddy, he has a literal blind spot. He cannot see like from right here over, from the right side. So he says his wife always rides in the passenger seat of the car because she's concerned about her safety. And so, and he's like, but this is what he says. He's like, you know what the problem with my blind spot is? He's like, I can't see it. That's the problem with the blind spot, right? You can't see the blind spot. What's the problem with your circumstances? It can be a blinder. And so in the midst of your circumstances, it causes you to question the goodness of God. And it's just like, whoa, time out. No. My confidence isn't in what I'm experiencing. It's in the one who's over what I'm experiencing. That's where all of it is. Because the simple truth of it is this: God is there. Even though you cannot see him right now because he's in a blind spot for you, he's still there. He hasn't gone. He hasn't left. He has not abandoned you. He's always there. Our problem is whenever we forget that we have the blind spot of the circumstance. That's where we fail. And so we have to continually preach to ourselves, to remind ourselves, to talk to ourselves, to listen to the right voices and to say, no, my God has not failed me. My God has not abandoned me. And even though I can't see where he is right now, I know he has not left his throne. He's still there. He's still ruling. He's still reigning, because God's goodness is not determined by my circumstances. And so I no longer interpret how good God is based off of my circumstances. I interpret my circumstances based off of God's goodness. That's how we roll now, right? Those are the steps we take. And our God is always good. He can never be anything but good. And I don't have to understand everything to trust that he is a good God. Because here's the thing, I've read this book a few times now, and here's the thing. We have never been promised that things are always going to go the way that we want. We have never been promised that we will not experience hardship, that we will not experience difficulties in this life. We have never been promised that life is always going to be easy, that it's always going to be puppies, rainbows, and warm chocolate chip cookies, okay? It's never been promised that that's the way it's going to go. But we have been promised that we're not alone. For even though I walk through the darkest valley, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? For you are with me. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you, nor will he forsake you. And surely I tell you, I am with you always until the very end of the age. Friends, God never promised you that nothing bad would ever happen to you. The only thing he promised to you is that when something bad happens to you, you will not face it alone. That he will be with you. And so whenever you were sitting in that doctor's office and they started using words that you had never heard of, or words that you had, you weren't alone, and you're not alone. He's with you. So whenever you were sitting there on the couch, tears rolling down your eyes, wondering just how in the world is this marriage ever going to be salvaged, you weren't alone. He's with you. So whenever you're looking at your budget and you're looking at your checking statement and you're seeing a whole lot more month than there is money, you're not on your own. He's with you. Whenever your closest confidant betrayed you and you wondered if you would ever be able to trust anyone again, you're not alone. He's with you. As you stand on your front porch, watching out to the horizon, looking and longing and waiting for your prodigal child to come home. You're not alone. He is with you. So our confidence is not in our circumstances. It's in the one who's over our circumstances. Quitting is easier than enduring. But what's easy isn't always best. So the bottom line this morning is this, is God's presence transforms our perspective. Understanding that he is with you is what allows you to transform your perspective. His presence is what transforms our perspective. So here's my challenge to you this week. I want you to answer this question. I want you to spend some time thinking about this. So what would change in your life if you were certain that the Lord is with you? What would change? What would you do if you were absolutely confident that the Lord's with you? What would you do? You know, maybe that means it would be time for you to step out. Maybe there is a God-sized dream that he has placed in your heart that you have been delaying from stepping out and going after it. But what if you were just certain the Lord was with you? And what if he is with you and he's asking you to step out in faith on that dream? To go start that thing? What would change if you were certain? I mean, what would change if you're certain that the Lord is with you? Maybe that would allow you to step out and to say, you know what, the Lord is with me. This is silly as it sounds. The Lord is with me, so I feel confident enough that I can invite my friend to church now. That I can step out and I can begin to share my story of faith about how the Lord has been with me through my difficulties, through my past and through my life. I feel if God is with me, then I feel like I can step out and do that. Maybe it allows you to step out in faith and be able to say, I need help because I've got certain things that I'm battling, whether it's addictions, whether it's, mental illness, whatever it is, our marriage needs help. And it gives you the courage to say, you know what, I don't have to worry about my reputation. I don't have to worry about any of those kind of things because God's with me. And you can step out and you can do that. Maybe it's going to give you the strength to be able to say no to the temptations that you are facing and to say yes to the things of God. What would change in your life if you were certain that the Lord is with you? Because here's what I'm here to tell you today. Just as the Lord was with Joseph, he's with you. He is with you today. And that presence can transform your perspective. The Lord was with Joseph. He was with him in slavery, with him in prison. And about 1,700 years after the life of Joseph, God became God with us. At Christmas time, we say it's Emmanuel, which literally is God with us. And he sent a better Joseph. He sent his one and only son, Jesus. And just like Joseph, Jesus experienced a lot of good news and a lot of bad news. People loved him. They loved listening to him. They wanted to make him king, and that was good. But when he didn't do what they wanted him to do, they mocked him. His friends abandoned him. Judas betrayed him. Peter denied him. The soldiers crucified him. They killed him, and he was laid in a tomb. And my friends, that was bad news. But on the third day, Jesus woke up feeling good, and that's resiliency, my friends, all right? Whenever you can get up after being dead, that's resilience. And that's the ultimate good news. And since Jesus did this, listen, we have the promise that just like Joseph, God is with us. And whatever we face, we know it cannot separate us from God himself. So this morning, maybe it's a great time for you to experience the with you life. To experience what God has done for you in Jesus Christ and to say, God, I want you to be with me. And it's a great day to confess your sins. It's a great day to repent of your sins, to declare that Jesus is Lord. It's a great day to be baptized, to be united with him in his death, burial, and resurrection. It is a great day to start a new life. And if you're watching online, if you've just clicked play and you've stuck with us up until this point, what if the Lord had a message for you? And what if he's calling you to step into relationship with him? Well, if you're watching online, you can head on over to the website that's on our screen right now, and you can fill out that form. We'll be in touch with you within 24 hours and just being able to say, how can we help you in this journey? But if you're in the room, what a great day to begin your journey with the Lord. What a great day to say, God, I want you with me. I've been living on my own, and I know how poorly that's going. I want you with me. And surrender to him today. If you've got your connection card, you can grab that thing right now and you can say, hey, the Lord is leading me to a next step. Maybe it's to begin a relationship with the Lord. Maybe it's to recommit your life. Maybe it's to say, hey, I need you to pray for me over this. Maybe you're ready to just like make that decision. Well, check the box that best describes you. And then as you're leaving, the ushers will be at the doors and drop that off in the bucket and we'll be in touch tomorrow. And let's go, let's go with this thing. And let's begin experiencing the life that the Lord has for you when he is with you. So, Father, today, we're asking for your reassurance and your strength right now. And maybe today, right now, God, maybe the thing that we need to hear more than anything is just this simple reminder. Somebody needs to hear this, that the Lord is with you today. And what they've experienced this week, what they've been experiencing for the past few months has just been overwhelming, and they feel all alone. And today they walked into this place, not on accident, but on purpose, your ordained purpose, so that they would hear a message that is reminding them today to their very core, striking them in their very soul, I'm not alone. The Lord is with me. And allow that, God, allow that reassurance, allow that reminder to be something that gives strength to their soul, to be able to have the resilience and the grit that they need right now to endure the pain so that they can be stretched, so that they can grow into something that they never could be without this pain that they're facing right now. And so we thank you for the pain, God, because we know through pain is what comes growth. And God, for the rest of us, as we just sit here and we ponder, would we remember today that you are with us wherever we go? With us as we leave this place today. You're with us tomorrow. You're with us the entire week. And help us to live in the absolute confidence that you are with us. And let that give us the strength to do what you've called us to do. And we pray this all in your powerful name, Lord Jesus. Amen.